Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Ahlulbayt Live on Ahlulbayt TV with me, Rebecca Masterton, and my guest is Brother Ali Rahim, and we're continuing with our series of a philosophical analysis of the basis for belief and the existence of God. And do feel free to call in with any questions or comments that you may have, and inshallah we will try to continue with some of the points that we didn't complete last week, and we'll be inshallah starting also with a new discussion this week. Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
Would it be possible to remind us or begin with the points that you wanted to discuss?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Last week we ended on a discussion of the centrality of faith to human psychology, of belief to human nature. So we brought up some verses of the Quran and narrations which point towards the fact that faith and belief in Allah is central to our nature. And there were various verses that we spoke about. So if I can remind the people of one or two, we have the verse in the Quran which talks about when a person is out at sea and this ship is sinking, and at that point, in a moment of despair, they call out to Allah, and they have this hope inside of them that someone will save them. We have the narration of the Prophet that every child is born a Muslim, and it's their parents that change them and make them into Jews or Christians or Zoroastrians. So we have these various narrations and verses of the Quran which speak about faith being part of our nature. Now, I think that the logical thing to do next would be to analyze these narrations, or to look at how we behave ourselves and to see if there's any evidence in our own behavior from our experience to show that faith is a part of our nature.
Yeah. And
then from then on to look at what the scientists and the psychologists say about faith being a part of human nature, because there has been some research in recent years which has shown that belief in God is central to human nature.
Right.
So that's what we can look at next, inshallah.
Inshallah.
So I have a number of points here that show us that faith is part of our nature. When I say faith, I'm talking about belief, of course.
Yeah.
Or, maybe we can use the word faith because maybe it is faith when you haven't thought about it, when you haven't thought it through. It is a form of faith. But later on, when you do think about it and you do study the subject, it becomes belief. So we have this human characteristic of searching for God. The question of the existence of God is one of the most important questions that's asked. It's a question that raises so many debates.
Yeah.
So we have to ask ourselves the question, why is it that we're always searching for God or debating about God? And why is it that those people who are against the belief in God are so zealous in their approach? Why isn't it the fact that they just sit back and just relax?
Yeah.
Why are they so angry
Yeah.
about God and the existence of God? Why get so upset? If you believe that you're going to die anyway, and this world is all there is, and there's nothing in the hereafter, then why get angry about this thing? Just go and enjoy yourself.
I think that's a good point, because I've looked on some go and enjoy yourself. Yeah, because I've looked on some atheist sites or people who even comment about religion in the newspapers where you can add your comments, and often they are quite vehement and sort of acidic and condescending, and I do think the same thing. I think, why bother? What's your problem?
Yes.
Relax. You're just as bad as any kind of extremist. You've just gone to the other extreme in hatred for so as you say, relax, enjoy yourself.
Yes, and that's what they should do, but it doesn't seem to happen. I can understand it if they feel that religion causes problems and they want to stop religion, but to be so anti-God or belief in anything supernatural and to get so angry about it, I don't see the point in that, to be honest. So we have this search, and some people, when they haven't got any hope in life, or if they're confused in life, they ask themselves, why is it that I'm always asking this question? Why is it that God keeps coming back to me?
Yeah.
And there are people who've converted to Islam, and I'm sure you've met people, and maybe from your own experience, that when religion does come to you, when Islam does come to you, it's something that you can't escape from sometimes.
Yeah.
It's something that just it chases you.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've got anything to say about that.
Yeah, I think I actually went through that for 2 years, because it was, you know, it was when I went for 2 years. I was researching and I was weighing up and I was thinking about formally converting, because I thought I don't want to rush into something and then rush out. but it was something that didn't leave me alone. I would wake up in the morning thinking about it, and think about it all day. I'd go to bed thinking about it, and sometimes I'd actually say to myself, look, just stop thinking about it, you know, just for a minute, just stop thinking about it. And then it would be, no, thinking about it. So yeah, so, in the end I had to submit, you know, I had to, okay.
It goes to show that it's part of nature.
Yeah.
It's part of our nature. If you want to reject it, you still think about it. In fact, I was reading something written by a psychologist some time back, that when you try and put away certain thoughts, they become stronger.
Right.
They come back towards you. So even for those people who hate this idea in God, even they are obsessed with it. Even Richard Dawkins is obsessed with God. I'm pretty sure he thinks about it a few times a day, every single day.
He probably thinks about God more than many religious people.
Probably.
Yeah.
Maybe, in fact. So we have this search for God. Then there's morality. Why is it that we're moral? And we're not just moral, we're moral in a religious way. There's a religious flavor to it.
Yeah.
This feeling of holiness, how did it come about? We seek to be holy. We celebrate people who are holy people. We celebrate people who've done good for humanity.
Yeah.
Now, whenever these discussions are taking place, they have two worldviews which they're contrasting. There's the materialist worldview, and the explanations for that worldview are usually given from a Darwinian perspective. So we have to ask the question, if we did evolve, then why does this feeling come about within us? Why is there this pursuit of holiness inside us?
Yeah.
So that's another thing that shows that we've got religious tendencies within us. The fact that our morals are geared towards a spiritual flavor or a holy nature.
Yeah.
It's not just a case of I'm helping someone. We celebrate and we put people on a pedestal when they do great things.
Yeah.
Why does humankind have this characteristic? So that's the second thing that we could talk about. Seeking perfection. We're not just beings that live, eat, reproduce, pass down our genes. We seek perfection. We're always looking to improve ourselves. In fact, there's this neuroscientist. His name is Robert Sapolsky. He's an atheist and he hates religion, and he's a primatologist. So he studies primates, apes, monkeys, gorillas, and he compares primates to human beings. Now, if a religious person was to compare the primates to human beings, we would come up with differences that are not the same as the differences that he came up with, because in some of his lectures he talks about the differences between the primates and the human beings. What are the characteristics that human beings have that primates don't have? And he's listed a few of these differences. He says the number one difference between the primates and us is that we don't give up. And he says this is the difference between us and all other animals. When the odds are against us, we just do not give up. We will continue to try and solve a problem. He says that's the biggest difference that we have.
I didn't know that primates did give up.
When they see that a situation is hopeless,
Okay.
they won't continue trying to solve the problem. In something like changing someone's mind, as an example.
Right.
He gives other examples, if I can mention them really quickly. Passive aggression. Passive aggression is when you're aggressive but in a passive way.
Yeah.
For example, your job is to control a drone which bombs people in Pakistan. You have some people in America who do this. They go to work, they sit down, and they drive this plane which is thousands of miles away, and they drop bombs.
Yeah.
So it's a passive, type of aggression where you don't feel the emotions. This type of evil. He says that's one difference we have. We have empathy for other creatures, which
Excuse me. Yeah.
which other animals don't show. We have empathy for other creatures. We have complex culture. Our culture is very complex.
What's happened? I was joking. This has never happened. I'm going to have to ask somebody to get some water. Sorry, can I just offer some water? Yeah. Just got something caught in my throat. So out. Okay, thanks. Oh dear, I'm coughing.
On your birth, Ali would cry. He poured the tears for the day you die, the day on which on the sands you'd lie, your hands cut off, an arrow in your eye. Haidar would mourn your death, we the Shia shall never understand how it felt for you to fall on that land, on the scorching and red hot sands, without your two right and left hands. What a sacrifice you gave, Abbas.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome back. Sorry for that emergency break. I think that's the first time that's happened since I've been working here for 3.5 years. So I haven't had a cough for about the last 3 weeks, but I just decided to sort of be a bit extreme a few minutes ago, but we've got over it, alhamdulillah, and we're ready to resume the discussion. So if you could just continue with some of the points that you were making.
Yes, so I was saying this scholar, Robert Sapolsky, he says there are some differences between primates and human beings, and he's listed a few. The next one is gratification for a reward after death. He says no other creature on earth delays gratification until after death. All other creatures want gratification instantly, whereas us, we act for the next life, and we're the only creature on earth that does this.
Yeah.
So he's brought up these points, and we can add a few more. Our appreciation for beauty, that's something that's not talked about much as far as I'm concerned. Why do human beings appreciate art and beauty?
Yeah.
What benefit is there from an evolutionary perspective to appreciate a sunset?
Yeah.
Or to, if people are into music, to appreciate or like music? Where does it come from? There's a famous geneticist in Italy. His name is Giuseppe Sermonti. He's one of the top geneticists in Italy. And he's written a book called Alas, Poor Darwin. And in that book, he makes a point that there are certain fish deep within the ocean that have certain colors and patterns.
Yeah.
And there's no light there. He says, what's the point of them having this? For what reason? And he comes from a design perspective. So maybe they were designed and maybe they were created for us so that we would appreciate them. So this beauty that you see in creation, why is it there?
Yeah.
Why is it that a being that replicates and reproduces only for the sake of spreading its genes have this appreciation of beauty? Where does it come from? So there's that point as well.
Can we prove that animals don't appreciate beauty though?
They must do to some extent. I mean, the peacock, the female peacock obviously appreciates the male peacock's feathers.
Yeah.
So they must do to a certain extent.
Yeah, they must do because of, and that would be for obviously procreating. But as you say, we don't know whether or not they appreciate a sunset.
Yeah, we don't know if they have the sort of experience we have. But from their perspective, it's only there to show the health of the opposite gender, and no more than that. Whereas our appreciation is much greater than that. In fact, we could even ask, why is it that animals have this feature where they in order to reproduce, they need to look at the beauty of the other partner in that way, which doesn't really, which wouldn't need to be there.
Why is there a necessity for beauty in nature for animals anyway?
Something that's not directly related to their ability to reproduce or to have good health.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need to find out if the peacock is strong. You don't need to look at the feathers. You don't need to look at the feathers to see if it's able to survive. Why did that come about? But then again, human beings have a greater appreciation of beauty in the art, in poetry, in literature. So we have certain characteristics that these other creatures don't. And of course, we have the hope as well. We hope for a savior saving us when there's despair, which the
but again,
religion tells us.
I wonder whether, because the other night I was looking at some video clips of dogs that are going to be put down in a rescue centre, and one of these dogs was rescued. Now, and they said they showed the camera through its cage where it was just waiting, it was going to be executed the next day, and you could see the look of hopelessness in its face. And they said, look, he's given up hope, and he was just, this dog had a kind of defeated attitude. And that changed when they rescued him and took him out of the cage. He just like, what's going on? And he just started to, to come to life a bit more. Before that, he'd just be sitting in the corner So I was just wondering...
Humans can lose hope as well. We have humans that do lose hope, but you have certain human beings who have a religious nature who don't lose hope.
Yeah.
They fight up till the end.
Yeah.
And even if they feel like they're going to die, they still have hope that something better will come along.
Yeah.
So we do have this religious nature, and we are different to animals in that way. Anyhow, so we have these points that we need to think about. Now, science itself has shown that human beings do have a religious nature. There was this project that was completed called the Cognition, Religion and Theology Project at Cambridge University, and I think it took 3 years to complete, and it's a huge project. It spans over 20 countries, it has 57 researchers, massive project. The person who led the project, his name is Dr. Justin Barrett. He's a psychologist himself, and he says that human beings, and the conclusion of the project is that belief in God is part of our nature. And I'll quote him later on, but there's someone else I want to quote first. The co-director, his name is Professor Roger Trigg from Oxford University as well. And if I can quote him, he says, "This project suggests that religion is not just something for a peculiar few to do on Sundays instead of playing golf. We have gathered a body of evidence that suggests that religion is a common fact of human nature across different societies. This suggests that attempts to suppress religion are likely to be short-lived, as human thought seems to be rooted to religious concepts, such as the existence of supernatural agents or gods and the possibility of an afterlife or pre-life. And a couple of other quotes. It isn't just a quirky interest of a few, it's basic human nature. This shows that it's much more universal, prevalent and deep-rooted. It's got to be reckoned with. You can't just pretend it isn't there. So he's saying to us that it's a part of our nature and we can't just do away with it. So if there's any atheist out there who feels that they are justified in not believing in God and that it is the correct position to have, then they must feel down at this point, because it's a part of our nature. You're not going to stop people believing in God and being religious that easily.
No.
People do have religious inclinations. In fact, even those people who might not be religious have religious behavior. Look at people who go to football matches. It's almost like a religious
it's very religious.
ritual.
Yeah.
People, you get
They treat football like religion.
They do.
Yeah.
And my own opinions are not probably very popular on that. I think people shouldn't treat football teams like religion.
Yeah.
That's my
But
opinion.
you know, we're living in an age as well, because there's also, I remember noticing years ago, looking at the manifesto by Marx and Engels, and there's a little footnote in it that says Marx and Engels' manifesto has become the most widely read book after the Bible and the Holy Quran.
Okay.
And it was saying that it is as, you know, revered as one of these holy texts. So actually what happens, I mean, we saw this with Marx in the 20th century, where Marx was a big figure and Marxism was very widespread, that, as you say, technically you might do away with religion. So, okay, you've done away with prophets, you've done away with God, you've done away with holy texts, but that just actually gets replaced by something else, because Marx was atheist, but he gets treated like a prophet, and the manifesto gets treated like the Bible.
Yeah.
Or we saw that with Mao as well, and his little red book, as they call it. So he was, you know, avidly atheist, wanted an atheist society, and signs of any old religion in China were suppressed. And yet the little red book became like, you know, Confucius teachings or Lao Tzu or whatever, and he becomes, you know, the current day, the present day prophet.
If you remove something, if you block away a means of fulfilling someone's natural desires, there's a saying of Imam Ali that if one door of halal is closed, then 1,000 doors of haram open up. So you get people who, they do away with religion, but then they bring in other things.
Yeah.
We have our holidays in this country, such as Halloween, for example.
Yeah.
To me, that has some sort of religious nature to it.
Yeah.
To an extent, although, you know, people will say it's not monotheistic in any way, but it does tend to seek out something supernatural, something more than what we have here. So this project has its specific findings, and I've put down 5 findings that we can cover. I believe we have a break coming up.
A couple of minutes.
Yes. Okay. So let's look at some of these findings. The first finding is that we see patterns in creation. In other words, we see design in creation. And children see this much more naturally than we see it. And the head of this project, Dr. Justin Barrett, he says that, if I can quote him, he says, for the past 10 years, the evidence has shown that children's mind are more inclined to see these patterns in the natural world. So for example, if you were to ask a child, why do birds exist? They won't just give a naturalistic or a non-godly explanation. They'll somehow bring design into it. So when they're asked, why do birds exist? They say birds are there because they sound nice. Or because they look pretty. They're there for us. Their songs sound good, and so that we can appreciate them. So this project has shown that we see design in the universe. We're inclined to see
That's true. If you think
some
about
sort
the,
of
the stars,
creation
for example.
in the universe.
Yeah.
So when people have events happening in their lives, they give meaning to those events. They try and find some sort of pattern, some sort of meaning to that. And so we're inclined to do that, and children especially are inclined to do that. So that's the first finding that that's been brought about. In fact, the same scholar says that if we were to throw a handful of children on an island and they raised themselves, I think they would believe in God.
Right.
That's what he says. If you left them on an island, their natural inclination would be to believe in God. That's what would happen to them. So we have this belief in, we see patterns in the universe. That's the first finding.
One thing that we're about to go to break, but I'll leave a question hanging in the air, which we can answer inshallah afterwards. Just because it's part of human nature to have religious inclinations or to believe in God, does that necessarily prove that there is God, or that religion is right?
Well, this scholar himself, Justin Barrett, he asked a question like this.
Okay.
He says...
We have to go to break, so we'll answer it after the break. Sorry about that. And we're going to take a break for a few minutes. Inshallah, we'll see you afterwards. Assalamu alaikum.